You know, and Faith and I have never acted together. You know, we've never done anything on screen together other than videos.
We call him a legend now. They see the cowboy hat, the stadium's packed with 50,000 screaming souls, and the empire built on a voice that sounds like American red clay. But if you look close, really close at Tim McGraw, you don't just see a country music superstar. You see a survivor. You see a man who has spent 58 years trying to outrun a shadow that was cast before he was even born. We love the hits. We love Live Like You Were Dying. But to understand the man, you have to go back to the silence. Back to Start, Louisiana. Back to a small, suffocating town where secrets hung in the humid air thicker than the mosquitoes. Imagine a little boy sitting on a porch step, listening to the hum of insects and the distant crack of a baseball bat. He didn't have a name, not a real one. He was Tim Smith. He was the son of a waitress, Betty, a woman who worked her fingers to the bone in a dimly lit diner just to keep a roof over their heads. He grew up believing a lie because the truth was too heavy for a child to carry. He was 11 years old when his world shattered. Just a boy looking for school supplies in his mother's closet. And there it was, a birth certificate. A piece of yellowing paper that screamed a truth the whole town whispered but never said to his face. Father, Frank Edwin McGraw Jr., Tug McGraw, the baseball hero, the star pitcher for the Mets and the Phillies. The man on the TV screen was the man whose blood ran through Tim's veins. Can you imagine the confusion? The hope? Tim didn't want money. He didn't want fame. He just wanted to know who he was. So his mother, terrified but desperate for her son to have closure, set up a meeting. Tim put on his best baseball cap. He walked in with his heart in his throat, ready to meet his hero. And Tug looked at the boy with his own eyes, hesitated, and walked away. I can't be sure, he said. And just like that, the door slammed shut. That is the wound that never truly heals. That is the fire that burned in Tim's gut when he was sleeping in his car in Nashville 10 years later. That rejection didn't break him, it forged him. Tim didn't go to Nashville to sing, not at first. He wanted to be his father. He wanted to stand on the pitcher's mound and throw pure heat, to prove to Tug and to the world that he was worthy of the name. He went to college on a baseball scholarship. He was good. He was hungry. But God has a way of wrecking your plans to save your soul. One twist, one snap of a knee, and the baseball dream was over. He lay in that dorm room, leg bandaged, staring at a ceiling. Then irony struck. The man who abandoned him, Tug, heard a demo tape. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was pride, but Tug passed it to a friend at Curb Records. Tim got his shot, and he flopped. His first album tanked. Most men would have packed up and gone back to the cotton fields. But Tim remembered that day he was 11 years old. He remembered the door slamming. He refused to let Nashville slam the door too. Then came 1994. Don't Take the Girl. It wasn't just a song. It was a prayer, and America fell to its knees. We didn't just hear a singer. We heard a man who understood loss. We heard a man who knew what it felt like to beg for one more minute, one more chance. The Golden Couple and the Hidden War. By the late 90s, he was unstoppable. And then he met her, Faith Hill, the woman who would become the other half of his soul. Their love story is the stuff of legend. The spontaneous combustion tour, the proposal in a trailer with rain pounding on the roof, the wedding under an oak tree in Louisiana, where Faith, 3 months pregnant and barefoot, simply said, "This is all we need." But let's be real. We project perfection onto them. We see the magazine covers. We don't see the war. Because behind the smiles, Tim was fighting demons that terrified him. The touring, the pressure, the adrenaline of 50,000 people screaming your name, followed by the crushing silence of a hotel room at 2 a.m. Tim has admitted it. He drank. He drank to stop the noise in his head. He drank because he was terrified that if he stopped moving, the ghost of that rejected little boy would catch up to him. Faith didn't just stand by him. She saved him. There came a point where she drew a line in the sand. She told him he had to choose the bottle or the family. And because he knew the pain of a father leaving, he chose to stay. He chose them. But the hardest test wasn't the addiction. It was the reconciliation. As Tim rose to the top of the world, Tug McGraw was falling. Brain cancer. The great pitcher reduced to a fragile man in a hospital bed. Tim could have been bitter. He could have walked away like Tug did all those years ago. But he didn't. He sat by that bed. He held the hand of the man who denied him. And in those final days, he heard the words he waited a lifetime for. I love you, son. When Tug died, Tim didn't just grieve. He went into the studio and recorded Live Like You Were Dying. That wasn't a performance. That was a eulogy. That was Tim McGraw bleeding onto a microphone. We think of our heroes as invincible, but time comes for everyone. And it came for Tim with a vengeance. He spent decades throwing his body around stages like a rag doll, jumping, running, giving every ounce of energy to the crowd. But the bill finally came due. Dublin 2018. The lights are bright, the crowd is roaring, and suddenly Tim McGraw, the fitness icon, the powerhouse, drops. He collapses on stage. Dehydration, they said. Exhaustion. But it was a warning shot. The last 4 years have been a private hell that the cameras didn't show. We saw the Instagram posts of him at the gym. We didn't see the 3 back surgeries. We didn't see the double knee replacement. Imagine being a man defined by your physical strength, by your ability to command a stage, and suddenly you can't even lift your leg. He lay in that hospital bed, legs wrapped in bandages, unable to move, terrifyingly helpless. The doctors told him if he didn't slow down, he might not walk right again. For a man like Tim, that's not just a medical diagnosis. That's an identity crisis. And who was there? Faith, again. When he was weak, she was strong. When he couldn't walk, she was his crutch. They sat on their porch in Tennessee, watching the rain. No longer the young superstars of the 90s, but 2 people growing older, holding hands, grateful just to be upright. This is the part of the story the tabloids miss. They want the scandal. But the real story is the quiet dignity of a man learning to accept his own fragility. He isn't chasing the charts anymore. He's chasing peace. Now, at 58, Tim McGraw looks different. The eyes are a little deeper, the smile a little softer. He lives out on that farm in Franklin, in a house that dates back to 1850, a place with history, a place with roots. He wakes up early. He drinks his coffee, looking at the mist over the lake. He walks with faith, not rushing to a plane, not rushing to a sound check, just walking. He drives his old 1960s Oldsmobile, a reminder of where he came from. He visits Tug's grave with a baseball and a guitar, whispering to the wind, "I'm still learning, Dad." He's worth $200 million. He has his own island in the Bahamas. But if you asked him what his greatest treasure is, he wouldn't point to the platinum records or the Aston Martin. He would point to the dinner table where his 3 daughters sit. He would point to the woman sitting across from him, who saved his life more times than she knows. Tim McGraw is a lighthouse, not because he's perfect, but because he stood firm when the waves crashed over him. He survived the abandonment. He survived the poverty. He survived the addiction. He survived the grief. And now he's surviving the physical toll of a life given to the stage. He reminds us, those of us who have lived a little, who have lost parents, who have felt our own knees ache when it rains, that life isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning how to dance in it. So, the next time you hear Humble and Kind on the radio, don't just hum along. Listen to the voice. That's the voice of the boy from Start, Louisiana, who refused to stay invisible. That's the voice of the man who forgave the unforgivable. That's the voice of an American legend who fought like hell to get here, and who is finally, after all these years, at peace.